Hey guys, did you know that you actually have 5 hip flexors in your body? Not just the one psoas that everybody knows and talks about. This is really interesting, especially for people who have lower back pain, because a lot of times when you read blogs and books and all the literature on lower back pain, people always throw around that saying that, oh, you get lower back pain because your hips are too tight and your hip flexors are over engaged. You got to stretch your hip flexors. And then when you ask people what hip flexors, the only one they know is the psoas. And in my experience working with lower back pain, that's actually not usually the main culprit. The psoas usually does not cause as many problems for lower back pain, in my experience, than does other muscles. And I'm going to talk about those other muscles. So the 5 muscles, and I'm going to start in this order of which one I find is the most problematic to the least problematic, okay? The 5 muscles of the hip flexors that usually cause lower back pain are the iliacus muscle, okay, which does join to the psoas at its inferior, at its attachment down into the hip, but it's not the same muscle, okay? The iliacus, then you have the tensor fascia lata, which is a hip flexor and an abductor and a rotator on the outside of the hip. Then you have the rectus femoris, which is part of your quads, okay? And then you have your psoas, then you have your sartorius muscle, okay? So I rank the psoas as being further down the list in terms of priority when it comes to hip flexors that are influencing lower back pain. I just don't usually see that to be the problem, or at least to be a problem that you want to release. A lot of times I see hip flexors or psoas muscles particularly that need to be strengthened, not usually released. But in terms of what hip flexors do you want to stretch and release, you should be looking at your iliacus, you should be looking at your tensor fascia lata and your rectus femoris. I see those ones getting really tight, contributing to lower back pain much more than I see the psoas and the sartorius. More often, I actually see the psoas and the sartorius needing to be strengthened and engaged. So with the with the iliacus muscle, that one is buried deep inside your hip. And you've got to go in there with your hands and you have to release that one. Or you can get therapists to release it. The TFL or the tensor fascia lata, that one's on the outside of your hip and you can roll through that one on the out front side of your hip. The rectus femoris is right into the front of the hip. It's at the top of the quads. You can release that guy. The psoas is way inside the belly. And then your sartorius, it's kind of at the same spot as the TFL and it wraps around onto the inside of the knee. Those muscles are your 5 hip flexors. So now you know, just a little tip right there. It's not just one hip flexor. And when you're thinking about what hip flexors do I need to release to relieve my back pain, I would start with the iliacus, okay? All right, hope that was helpful for you guys. Thanks for watching.